To create an image that looks like this, where you have part of your image as a photo and then part of your image as a drawing, you're going to want to find, first of all, what picture you want in the background, and then the second step is what additional picture you can add on top that might be interesting as the drawing in certain areas. So a great way for this to work is using paper. Because on paper you have more of a sketchy drawing and shading effect that could look interesting, and make it kind of fit really well with your picture. So here are a few additional ideas for that could be interesting directions to explore or take this, where you're adding multiple pictures. So for this photo, he would have taken a picture of himself, he would have holding the paper, and then taken a second photo of a hand to put onto the paper here. So if you have an idea but you're not sure how to complete it, let me know. But again, to get started with this practice image in Photoshop, you're going to start out with just your background photo. So File Open to open your background photo, and then to add the second image that you're going to work with, you go to File and then Place Linked. And I'm going to add that picture of the paper that's ripped. And then make sure you stretch that paper or stretch that second image so that it fits in the place that you want it to, so that it fills the frame. If you lower the opacity, you can see through the image to start to figure out the placement of things and where you want it. So again, everything inside of this area is what would be filled in with the image, versus everything on the outside is what I'm going to be drawing. So once you have it placed where you want it, you can bring that opacity back up, and you're going to add a mask to that layer. So on the layers panel here in the bottom right corner, you're going to click on the square with the circle. So that adds a mask. And then I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool and make sure it's a big enough size that I can erase a good amount of this photo. So I'm going to just erase the middle. My opacity was set low, so make sure your opacity is all the way at 100. And then take your time and really mask off and erase that middle part the best you can.
Lauren Nassafaro.
If you mess up or if you erase too much of your picture that's in the background, the nice thing about the mask is that you can switch your color from black to white with the paintbrush, and you can bring that part of the image back. So you can switch again between the black and the white with this little arrow here. But go ahead, take your time and mask off that image. So when you're done, it should look something like this, where again you have that entire middle part masked out of the image. The next step is going to be starting to draw the outside, so drawing all the way around the paper in the background. In order to see what needs to be drawn, I would lower the opacity of your paper so you can see, first of all, where to stop your drawing, and then where the paper with the actual image is going to be. So I'm going to add a new layer, and then on this layer I'm going to start drawing with my paintbrush to create the outline for the face here. And it helps if you zoom in to see some of those areas, but I would just go ahead and get started painting or drawing and shading different things in. The reason why I'm going beyond the outside of this paper is because I can eventually go back and erase those parts, so that way it just makes it easier to figure out what to shade. So I'm going in, outlining everything. You can even hide that picture layer if it helps as you're outlining and tracing. But when you're finished, your shading should look something like this. I'm going to zoom out. I have everything filled in. I kind of ignored most of the face, or most of the parts of the face that will be covered in the paper here, so the nose and mouth. But again, if you have areas like this that extend over, what you can do is grab the eraser tool and then find the layer that you were drawing on, and with that eraser tool you can just erase that part so you have just the paper that's visible. So there's the drawing. After you have the face drawn, or the main portion of the image, if you have a background in the photo you're using, like I do here onto the left side of the image, make sure that you're outlining that as well. So here is that background outlined. I outlined where the bottom of the grass is, where the top of the trees are, and just shaded that in using more of a sketchy style. So if you wanted to see a time lapse of an actual sketchy style with this drawing, be sure to check out the time lapse of either this one or the sketchy outline drawing as well that I have a time lapse of. So now I'm going to bring the opacity of the picture or of the paper all the way back up to 100. So now you can really see the outline of the drawing and everything shaded in, and just that picture in the middle that that's the image. Something else that you can play around with is value change on the face. So maybe you want to add a little bit more dimension or value change. What I did for this layer was just take down the opacity of the paintbrush. So let me grab the paintbrush. I had that opacity lowered, and I used a bigger size brush and just painted over certain areas that I wanted to have some of that lighter value. I believe I used a paintbrush with more of a feathered edge to help that to really blend in better with the image. So I would make sure you do this on a new layer so that it's separate in case you don't like it. And as you're shading this in, if you feel like it's too dark, you can lower the opacity of the layer itself as well. So that's something that I would leave as just a really faint layer that adds more of that pencil effect on the paper. But when you're finished, you can save it as a JPEG and turn in. But keep in mind again to try to touch up and add multiple layers as you're working with this.